Well, welcome everyone to our Language of the Land webinar series. My name is Corby Hines, the Outings Guide with Sonoma Land Trust, and tonight I'm pleased to present Birdwatching to Reduce Stress, Anxiety, and Social Isolation with Miles and Teresa Tuffley. I'll introduce Miles and Teresa in a moment, but first I want to let you know that we are using Zoom's webinar platform tonight, which is more secure and safer to use. This means we only see and hear the hosts and the panelists, not any of you, the attendees. And for the best viewing, we recommend setting your Zoom to speaker view during the presentation, and you can move the presenter image to the side. We'll be going from 7 to 8:30 tonight, and we'll be reserving the last 20 minutes for Q&A. You can submit your questions via the Q&A option, which is at the bottom of your screen. And you can do that at any time during the presentation or during the question and answer session at the end. And we will also be recording this whole session, and we're going to put it up on our Sonoma Land Trust YouTube page, as well as our website in a couple of days. And if you're new to us, if you're not familiar with Sonoma Land Trust, our mission is to protect the natural lands of Sonoma County for everyone's benefit. And we were founded in 1976. And to date, we've protected over 50,000 acres in our county. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our presenters for tonight. Teresa and Miles Tuffley are avid birders from Guerneville, and they especially love helping bird-curious folks to take the next step of getting into the field to enjoy the bird world. They lead guided bird walks and give educational presentations for local organizations like Land Paths, Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation, Marin Audubon Society, Point Reyes National Seashore Field Institute, and the Point Reyes Birding and Nature Festival. Residents of West Sonoma County for 10 years, Miles and Teresa also enjoy writing about and documenting our local birds at their website, imbirdingrightnow.com. So without further ado, Miles and Teresa, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us, Corby, and thanks for having us, Sonoma Land Trust. We're so excited to be here today to present birdwatching to reduce stress, anxiety, and social isolation. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. All right.
Everything look okay on your end, Corby? Great.
Okay, so we are so excited to be here, and we are so excited how many people have joined us. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
Yeah, a little bit about ourselves. Well, my name's Miles Tuffley.
And I'm Teresa.
I think it's fair to say that we are quite obsessed with birds and bird watching. And we fell in love with not only the birds themselves, which certainly provide a lifetime of wonder and joy and enjoyment for us, but we were particularly drawn to the physical and mental act of bird watching itself, of getting out there and looking at the birds. And from the very first time we did it, we both remarked at how good we felt afterwards. We just really experienced a boost of positive emotions, and it kept us going back out there again and again and again and again and again. And we basically just haven't stopped since. And life is particularly stressful right now, and we feel very strongly that turning your attention to the birds and nature in general is just a terrific way to combat the stress and anxieties that we are all experiencing right now. So we're really excited to explore this topic with you today.
So real quick, our agenda for the day is we're going to spend just a short amount of time, maybe about 10 minutes, talking about life stressors right now, before we switch gears and talk about the benefits of paying attention to nature, as well as where does birding fit in with that. And then for the brand new bird watchers joining us today, or hopefully the soon to be brand new bird watchers, we're going to go over a few tips and birdwatching basics. And then we're going to leave you with a few exercises to hopefully make birding a part of your daily routine, which is going to help you reap those benefits. So what are life's stressors right now? There is a lot going on. I believe that, the pandemic has created this just giant feeling of universal uncertainty across everyone across the globe. And it's affecting work for pretty much everyone. Either you might be out of work right now, or you might be having to adjust to working from home. Or if you're still going into the workplace, you know, there's regulation changes every day probably. And you have to adjust to the higher exposure of risk, you know, when you're going to the workplace and still interfacing with the public. And environmentally, I know that I'll speak for myself, I can feel pretty overwhelmed when I start to think about the challenges of climate change. And so it's really difficult, you know, here, for example, in Sonoma County and the Bay Area, and actually across all of the West Coast, we are dealing with fire season every single year, you know, and this year for us, it started pretty early. Miles and I got evacuated from our home back in August for a week, and that was stressful. Thankfully, everything is fine, but it still doesn't negate the stress that can come from that. And we're not even done with fire season, you know, it's only September. As a nation, we're grappling with the realities of social injustice, and particularly, you know, longstanding systemic racism here in our country. And politically, our country is it just really feels divided right now, and so many issues have become politicized. So when we think about those first 5 topics, these are realms where we might feel that we only have just a little bit of personal control over, and sometimes even maybe no control over. But in the realm of technology, that is a realm that we have at least a little bit more agency in. So we are going to devote a couple more slides to that specifically. But before I advance the slide, I want to share with you a quote from the Greek Stoic philosopher Epictetus, which kind of sets up the foundation for our presentation. You become what you give your attention to. If you yourself don't choose what thoughts and images you expose yourself to, someone else will, and their motives may not be the highest.
Yeah, so that leads us into the concept of the attention economy. And that's basically the idea that our attention is a limited resource, and there's an entire economy built around trying their best to figure out how to get it and maintain our attention. You know, our attention is a very valuable commodity to these businesses, and they're working very hard and are very good at getting it. So realizing that we feel is important. So within this attention economy, we're dealing with advertisements. One marketing research team found that the average American is exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 advertisements and brand exposures every single day. That number was kind of shocking to me. And the conclusion of that study kind of cracked me up too. It wasn't, oh my word, that's horrifying, we need to stop right away. It was, okay, how can we best you know, stand out for these consumers? Social media giants like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, these are billion-dollar companies whose revenue relies completely on our eyeballs capturing our attention. Screens are pretty much everywhere in our daily life. You know, even pulling into the gas station, we can be accosted by a screen and a commercial blaring at us, kind of against our will. But beyond that, you know, televisions and laptops and tablets, and of course the ubiquitous smartphone that, you know, many of us have on our person at all times. 2017 study showed that the average smartphone user receives up to 50 push notifications every single day. So that's, you know, up to 50 uninvited dings and buzzes that are just going to take our attention away from whatever we're doing, kind of just cutting in line, basically. There also seems to be kind of a collective expectation as a society, as a culture, to be responsive and available 24 hours a day, whether it's from work, friends, or family, and that can add to the stresses. The news industry is obviously a part of it and relies on our attention as well. And this can kind of show up in sensationalized news headlines and kind of being bombarded with these quick bursts of sensationalized news, just designed as to click or to stay tuned. And it can be difficult to wade through all that and figure out what is actually relevant to our lives. So all this is certainly not to say that we're completely anti-technology or we're Luddites. You know, we own a television and laptops and a smartphone, but we do feel it's important to kind of realize that technology can have an effect on our well-being, and to use the technological tools a little more consciously.
So what are we up against? We wanted to share a few book titles of some of the top-selling books on Amazon in the departments of web development, design, and marketing. And now pay special attention to the language that's used in these titles. It's the language of emotion. Well-designed, how to use empathy to create products people love. Exactly what to say, magic words for influence and impact. Contagious, why things catch on. Romancing the brand, how brands create strong, intimate relationships with consumers. And perhaps our favorite, and maybe favorite is not the appropriate word, but how to build habit-forming drugs. Oops, I mean products. So the author of this book, Hooked, this spoke at a conference, and there is a video on YouTube of him speaking, and we just wanted to share a 1-minute clip of him speaking there. And again, pay attention to the language that he's using. He is evoking negative emotions that humans feel. And those emotions they're not wrong, they're natural responses, and it's certainly something that just comes up inside of us. And maybe we don't like how negative emotions feel, but they're perfectly natural. So just take a listen to this.
Right, we all do this. Let me tell you folks, there is only one reason that people use your product. There's only one reason that people use any product. And that one reason is to modulate our mood, to make us feel something different. Let me ask you, what website or app do we go to when we're feeling the emotion of loneliness? Where do we go? Facebook, right? Somebody said Tinder. Also true, different kind of loneliness, but also true. What about when we're feeling uncertain? Before we scan our brains to see if we know the answer, what are we doing? We Google it, of course. And what about when we're bored? Between 2 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you have that big project you don't feel like working on right now. Where do you go? You check YouTube, you check Reddit, you check stock prices, you see what's happening in the news, right? All of these products cater to this painful internal trigger of boredom. We don't like that sensation, and we turn to these products and services with little or no conscious thought. Before we even understand why we're using these products, we're already online.
Okay, so I think that's fairly transparent. The tech and news and commercial industries are taking these negative emotions that we as humans just naturally tend to feel, and they're figuring out the best ways to capitalize on them. So what we want to encourage everyone to remind themselves about today is simply that you can pay attention to what you pay attention to.
Definitely, and I'm sure we're preaching to the choir here. You signed up for this webinar because you're interested in nature and birds already. But like Teresa said, we do feel it's important to realize what areas of our life we do have agency in what we pay attention to. So this is a nice collage of a bunch of photos that Teresa and I have taken while out birding here in Sonoma County, and we're paying attention to nature. So as we're about to talk about is what benefits does nature have in store for us when we pay attention?
So this is a topic that has been researched a lot, and I think that the benefits of paying attention to nature have been widely established at this point. So we're going to summarize those benefits here in the next few slides, and we don't necessarily go into the details of the specific studies or cite them. But if you are interested, please just shoot us an email afterwards, and we can send you the links of the studies and the research papers that we kind of read and collected information on. All right, so first in the realm of cognitive health, exposure to nature has been shown to improve memory, attention span, and concentration. It also can foster imagination and creativity. And by that, I don't just mean all the countless poems and pieces of artwork that have been inspired by nature, but also in terms of something like creative problem solving. So say that you're faced with a novel problem in your life. If you were to go out and take a walk through some trees, that would spark a little something in you that would allow you to better creatively tackle that problem in your life. Nature exposure also can promote impulse control, and it can improve the performance of school children on things like cognitive or memory tests.
Yeah, exposure to nature also has an effect on our physiological health. I think it's just kind of amazing that nature can actually literally change how our body is functioning. So it's been shown to decrease chronic pain, cortisol levels, lower blood pressure, lower your pulse rate, lower cardiac illness. And it's also been shown to have a correlation with improving longevity in elderly and to increasing our parasympathetic nerve activity. So the parasympathetic nerve system basically acts as like a brake pedal to our stress, anxiety, and fight or flight responses. So having increased parasympathetic nerve activity really allows your body to rest and recuperate better. It's also shown to improve healing times. And there's kind of an amazing study done throughout several years in the 1970s on post-operative hospital patients, all recovering, I believe, from gallbladder surgery. And so they split the patients up into two different groups. One group was put into a hospital room for recovery with a window that overlooked a small stand of leafy green trees. And the other group was put into hospital rooms to recover with a window still, but the window just looked out onto a brick wall. And what they found was kind of amazing to me. The group that had the nature scene out their window actually had shorter post-operative stays, so they healed faster. They used less painkillers, and they had more overall positive evaluations by their attending nurse. And so they had no idea they were part of the study at all. So they weren't told to, like meditate on the nature scene or anything. It was just this kind of ambient exposure had these impacts, which I find quite incredible.
And then, of course, in terms of our emotional or mental health, nature exposure certainly promotes well-being. And when I say well-being, I'm talking about this state of being comfortable or healthy or happy. Miles mentioned in the previous slide that it can decrease cortisol levels. And cortisol, of course, is the stress hormone in our body. And decreasing levels of cortisol can directly translate to a decreased experience inside of ourselves of stress or anxiousness. Nature can also help reduce feelings of social isolation, and it can lead to some positive interactions while you're outdoors. I can't say how many times Miles and I have been out bird watching on a trail, and somebody walks by and just strikes up a conversation. They're like, "Hey, what are you looking at? What's going on?" And suddenly, a couple of minutes go by, and we've had this nice, friendly interaction with a stranger, and then we part ways, and then we kind of turn to each other and say, like, "Boy, that was nice." Just a quick little human connection, a little human bonding. And, I guess it makes sense because we're out in nature actively reaping those benefits, and this other person is out there probably doing the same. So it just makes sense that it ends up in a positive interaction, I think.
Compare that to your average Facebook comment section. Maybe
Yes.
One is a little bit more positive than the other on average.
That might be true. And then nature exposure also can help create a sense of connection to something larger. Maybe for some people, it might be a spiritual type feeling, that intimate connection with the earth. For others, it might be an inspiration to join conservation efforts and be a part of something larger in that fashion. And before we move on, I want to just share our personal story of how nature can be very healing in an emotional way. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 28, and needless to say, it was quite a shock at that age, I guess. And I ended up going through a year's worth of treatments. So I had surgery and chemotherapy and radiation. And at the time, Miles and I were living in San Francisco. I had a really, really high stress job. And at that time, we were not tuned into nature at all. It just wasn't a part of our lives. But after treatment was finished and the doctors kind of said, "Okay, you're released, go back to your normal lives." We kind of took that opportunity to, reflect on and reprioritize our lives or what we valued in life. And we put physical health and our mental well-being up at the top. And I think that just somehow intuitively, we turned to nature for a little bit of healing. We started to go out on hikes. We started to explore the great outdoors and, find a forest trail to walk in. And I think it immediately, we could feel those benefits. And so, we also ended up moving away from San Francisco and somehow landed in Guerneville among the redwoods. And then, fast forward 10 or more years later, we're here talking to you today, and we fell in love with birds and birding somewhere along the way. And so I just can't stress enough from our personal experience how much nature can provide a healing if you seek it and let it do that for you.
Definitely.
Thanks for letting me share.
That was great. And that's not to say you have to make some giant change from, an urban environment to the middle of the woods. You can access these benefits of nature just by, paying attention to whatever green space you have available to you. I mean, as we saw with the hospital scene, or the hospital study, just, nature out your window can have a positive effect. But here in Sonoma County, we, are blessed with abundant parks and open spaces. Organizations such as Sonoma Land Trust, who work tirelessly to preserve and restore our natural habitat for us and for future generations, ensures that we have these open spaces here in Sonoma County. So we are very lucky. But if you don't have the ability to, go to a 100-acre preserve, just look for whatever green space you can find around you and try to just connect with it in some fashion, pay attention to it a little more, and you can reap those benefits as well.
Okay, so we've talked about the benefits of nature, and now comes our pitch for proposing that birding and taking the time to observe birds is the absolute best way to capture these benefits.
Yeah, so first off, birds are nature's ambassadors, as this rock pigeon is telling us. Welcome to nature. But we just feel that birds are really just the absolute perfect access point to nature exploration. For one, maybe the main reason is birds are everywhere. No matter the environment, birds have found a way to survive and even thrive. So even in urban, suburban, residential settings, everything. And birds are also very visible. We all love our fox sightings or bobcats or coyotes. Like, those are always great, but they're very difficult to see even when you're really seeking them out. Birds, on the other hand, they can just be right in your face. Maybe it's because they have wings and they know that they can fly away at the drop of a hat if necessary, but they're a little more bold in the presence of humans, and they're around during the daylight hours. Another really important thing for us is that birdwatching is free. You don't even absolutely need binoculars to appreciate birds and get the benefits of watching them. Of course, we definitely encourage you to get binoculars if you can, to bring birds in closer, particularly if you're interested in identifying them. Binoculars become kind of necessary, but you purchase binoculars once, they should last you a lifetime, and then all your bird watching opportunities from then on out can be free. Birdwatching also encourages you to get outside. I mean, we just spent 10 minutes talking about the benefits of nature, and step one for that is to step outside your front door. And birdwatching, if you're going to look for birds, you're going to do that a little more often. I mean, even looking out the window at a bird feeder can provide that as well. But it also encourages exploration within your natural surroundings. So I know for us, Teresa and I have discovered so many wonderful places throughout Sonoma County via going out to look for birds. And still to this day, we find new spots that we really didn't know existed, and maybe we wouldn't have found them if it weren't for birding.
All right, so we're all here today because we're exploring the idea that birding can reduce stress and anxiety and social isolation and boredom and uncertainty, all of these moods that the author from before talked about wanting to modulate. So perhaps the most important way that birding can help with those is the fact that it can be a direct route to mindful awareness. So if we're talking about simply exposing yourself to nature, then taking the time to observe birds really takes that to another level. When you're outdoors and you're trying to tune into your surroundings to notice where the birds might be, already you're focusing your visual attention and possibly your auditory attention, and you're really upping the awareness of that, like, sensory experience, which is automatically going to slow you down. It's also going to slow your thoughts down, or maybe even take away a little bit of space in your brain for, you know, circulating thoughts or worrying about the future, feeling anxious, or ruminating about the past, you know, kind of thinking about what could I have done differently. It's just going to take those opportunities in your brain away. It's going to reduce them at the very least. So it's just really great in that fashion. And another thing is bird watching is, at least we find it to be a regenerative activity. So, you know, there's plenty of other activities I enjoy, but I might feel sort of tired at the end of them or fatigued. But with bird watching, I just don't really feel that. Well, you know, at least, well, for a couple of hours. Maybe if I go out birding, you know, for 10 hours in one day, I might be tired at the end of it, of course. But, you know, going out for a few hours birding, at the end of it, it's kind of amazing. I noticed that I feel energized. I don't feel zapped or fatigued at all. I feel really excited and maybe almost like having a natural high. It's just so nice. And so speaking of auditory senses, it's just so nice to listen to a bird singing. This black-headed grosbeak right here, we took this photo along Santa Rosa Creek Trail of this beautiful male grosbeak, but we also happened to get them right outside our house. So we want to share with you just a 30-second clip of the black-headed grosbeak that was singing outside of our house. And while I play this clip, just try your best to pay attention and just listen to it. So this bird just kept going on and on after that. We had to fade him out.
Another great thing about bird watching is it stimulates your brain. It can be a really terrific intellectual exercise, intellectual activity, particularly when you get interested in identifying birds. So when you're trying to identify a bird, you're definitely going to exercise your memory, and you're going to need to focus on small details on a very small bird. So for instance, here on the left, we have two photos of two birds that look very similar. They're similar shape and size, and they're similar colors. So if you want to be able to tell them apart, you have to learn some small details about them to home in on. So here on the left, we have a ruby-crowned kinglet. And one of the ways to tell them apart from the Hutton's vireo on the right is this little black mark behind the large white wing bar there. On the right, you see the Hutton's vireo lacks that black mark behind their second white wing bar. So, you know, that needing to focus on that attention to detail is a great exercise for your brain, but you also have to remember which mark belongs to which bird. Teresa just talked about, you know, the auditory experience of looking at birds, and I love how it engages both parts of your brain, the visual and the auditory parts of your brain. So if you're, you know, out on the trail and looking at that grosbeak singing, and you got them in your binoculars and you're watching it sing, that's a great way to remember what bird makes that song, is, you know, combining your visual and your auditory sense. But one of the best things for how it stimulates your brain is that it leads to curiosity about other aspects of nature. You know, identifying the bird can just be step one. Then you might start asking yourself other questions about, you know, what does it eat? What kind of habitats does it like? So what's the name of that tree that it prefers anyway? And so you start kind of building this you know, larger context of the whole ecosystem that the bird lives in and that you live in as well. And so you're, you know, putting pieces of the puzzle together, and it can just be a wonderfully satisfying experience to maybe get a slightly deeper understanding of your surrounding environment.
Oh, and beware, you might also find yourself interested in all of the other creatures with wings. I'm on the trail going, oh, a dragonfly. Oh, there goes a butterfly.
It's not just birds you end up interested in.
All right, so birds are incredibly awe-inspiring and fascinating to no end. You know, it's really, really fun to watch a bird go through the cycle of life every single year. This great egret is a bird that builds its nest, well, this particular great egret builds its nest right smack dab in the middle of a residential area in Santa Rosa along 9th Street. So there are 2 giant eucalyptus trees in the median strip right in a totally busy residential neighborhood. And great egrets, snowy egrets, cattle egrets, and black-crowned night herons just take over these trees in the spring. And they are super noisy, and they poop a lot, and they are fascinating to watch. And it's so cool that you can see this happening. And it also kind of makes you wonder, how many years have they been using these trees to do this for? You know, looking at the great egret, you are really reminded that birds are direct descendants of dinosaurs. Something like this egret or a great blue heron just looks so incredibly prehistoric. It's just so neat. Speaking about the age of birds, so this little cute guy or gal, the Say's phoebe, is a visitor to our area in the wintertime. And paleontologists have discovered fossil records of this bird in basically the format that it is right now, that date back 400,000 years, which just blows my mind. And if it gives you any context, Homo sapiens have been around for about half that time, for just 200,000 years. And then, of course, you know, birds, some birds are capable of incredible feats of migration. So this bottom picture, the red knot, is a species that certain populations of the red knot, they migrate almost 20,000 miles in 1 year round trip every single year, which is so insane. It's the specific ones that breed up in the Canadian Arctic archipelago, and then in wintertime they fly all the way down south to the southern tip of South America in the Patagonia area. And, you know, occasionally in the fall, we'll be birding in Bodega Bay and we'll come across one of these red knots. And we'll just look at this bird and, you know, it's probably not this particular bird, but one, you know, another one of your species is capable of migrating that far every single year. It's just so insane to ponder while we're looking at this bird. And I feel so grateful to get to, you know, see a bird like that and really think about it in the present moment. It's
awesome to contemplate that. Birding can also provide a social connection, you know, so right now, we socialize with our friends nearly as much or in as close proximity as we would like. But birding can give you some opportunities to do that in person, but also online. So there is a widespread bird-loving community all across the globe, and it is growing. There might be a stereotype that bird watching is something you pick up after you're retired, but that's simply not the case. There is a large number of birders of all age groups, and so no matter what your age group, you're bound to find some like-minded individuals to meet and hang out with, and meet and hang out with people of all different age groups, of course. One of our best friends loves to remind people that we are all of birding age, and we couldn't agree more with that. So check out your Audubon Society chapters nearby. See if they are starting to do walks again. Sonoma Land Trust does bird walks and particularly raptor hikes in the fall and winter months. Unfortunately, this year they've been postponed due to the pandemic, but hopefully next spring they will pop back up again. But there's also a vibrant online community. I mean, we're getting to share this presentation, you know, with hundreds of people from all over the place, you know, through the internet, which is amazing. And even though I'm not seeing your faces and we're not out on the land together, I can feel that connection. And if you do happen to be on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, check out the bird corners of these websites. And they're often very, very friendly and inviting. And, you know, you can learn ID tips or ask ID questions or just get to know birds from different parts of the world and get to know birders from different parts of the world and kind of bond over this shared interest.
So earlier I mentioned that I can definitely feel a little bit overwhelmed when I think about climate change and the issues there. So it does help me just a tiny bit to feel like I am giving a little something to conservation efforts, whether it's, you know, just simply by sharing my bird sightings through eBird, where that data goes to the Cornell lab, and it may be available to be used for research to research how climate change is affecting birds. That makes me feel just a tiny little bit of agency. And there are lots and lots of opportunities out there to help with conservation efforts. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities. You know, here in the Bay Area, there are shorebird surveys, which you can sign up for, that do a similar thing. That data is really useful. So where does
All right, looks like we lost Miles and Teresa for a moment, but we'll just hang tight and see if their internet can get back in action. But I love that quote from Mary Oliver there. Attention is the beginning of devotion. You know, I've been thinking about that a lot recently, that attention is just such a precious gift that we can give to each other. And when you give it to nature, we learn so much. So it looks like they logged off for a moment, so I think they'll try and log back on. And we'll just hang tight. I'm going to take a look at the Q&A here. All right, lots of people are appreciating the presentation. And we have a question here from Austin asking me what my favorite bird is. And I love hanging out by the ocean. And when I see the pelicans flying by, just, you know, a few centimeters off of the surface of the ocean in a big group, I mean, they just look like they're having fun, you know, even when they're not hunting, they're just cruising over the top of the water. And then when a wave comes, they all bank and catch the updraft from that wave. And then they fly off the top right before it breaks, and then they regain formation and continue on their flight path. So yeah, I love pelicans. And just recently, we've got another question here. And for those of you who weren't available during the beginning of the presentation, we're talking to Miles and Teresa Tuffley, and they've got a great blog that I'm a subscriber to called I'm Birding Right Now. And their website is imbirdingrightnow.com, and it's full of really wonderful information and inspiration. And so I recommend, if you get a chance, maybe even right now, while we're waiting for them to log back on, check it out. That's imbirdingrightnow.com. Got another question here. If there's any other upcoming webinars by Sonoma Land Trust coming up, and we do have one coming up next month.
Are we back?
Yes, Miles and Teresa,
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, that's
Where have you guys been? Time no see.
Just goes with the territory in this day and age. So
everybody, hopefully we can.
we're just
all right, looks like they're having a few more issues. So we'll just hang tight, see if we can get that sorted out, and appreciate everyone's patience out in the ether there.
Okay,
And
quick share.
we can see you, and your sound is sounding a little bit better now.
Okay, we tried to share our screen, so let us know when you see it.
I do see it. Looking good.
Okay.
all right. All right, sorry about that, everyone. Did we cut out during the conservation slide?
This is the slide that you were on, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, so sorry about that. So Mary Oliver, wonderful poet, has the quote, "Attention is the beginning of devotion." And I'm not sure how much you heard, but I was just trying to talk about how I was wondering, where does the seed of inspiration for conservation come? So what it does take is the first noticing of something to create the desire to want to see it thrive. And so just simply noticing birds might end up eventually, or maybe even immediately, leading you down that path of wanting to make sure that that bird is going to be around for many years to come.
All right, so now we're going to shift focus to birdwatching basics. So hopefully we got you chomping at the bit that you want to go outside as soon as daybreak happens and go look at some birds. So there are a ton of different ways to enjoy birds and enjoy bird watching, as long as you're not harming them. But a lot of people, including us, really like to try to identify the birds that we're seeing, putting a name to an individual species of birds. So this section is going to talk a little bit about bird identification, the best way to start narrowing down a bird to a species.
So first, how to find birds. Birds are everywhere, but at some point, if you go out with the intention to look at birds, you're probably going to want to know, how can I look at even more birds? Not just the ones that pop out and are obvious, but how can I find out where they're sort of skulking or hiding? And so the best thing to do, first and foremost, is to start making looking for birds and listening for birds a habit. So simply doing that is going to increase your chances, and you'll get better at locating the birds. And maybe it's a little counterintuitive, but using your ears to locate birds to look at is really one of the best tips out there. So birds are making vocalizations year-round, and they also are making sounds while they're moving through their environment. So, there might be a sparrow kind of hiding under a bush, but as it hops around and scratches through the leaf litter, it's going to make some sounds that you can pick up on. So once you have used your ears to find a bird sound, your ears are naturally going to sort of triangulate for you what direction that's coming from. And then just focus your attention on, the bush that you heard a sound in, and start looking for signs of movement. So a little branch shaking or some leaves shaking, and hopefully that bird will pop into view. And you can also be preemptive in looking for birds in the first place by scanning places that you might expect to see a bird. So birds do like to perch in some particular type of spots, like telephone wires, or on top of a fence post, or on top of telephone poles, at the tip top of a tall tree. Raptors and vultures like really large dead trees with these big snaggy arms, like those are great perches too. So the more that you start to do this and start spotting these little blob shapes as you scan your surroundings, your brain's going to start filling in like pattern recognition for you, and it'll become easier and easier. And before then, before you know it, you'll be just kind of looking around and go, oh, I see a bird shape. And also, don't be discouraged if you put your binoculars up and you see a leaf. That's definitely the first step you need to get past. And we have looked at many, many non-birds in our day.
Yeah, step one is it a bird? And often it's not, and that's okay. So let's talk a little bit about binoculars. First off, what do these numbers mean, 8 by 42? So 8 is just the magnification, how close a bird is going to look when you look through your binoculars at it. 42 is just the lens diameter here, and that corresponds to the amount of light that is being let into your binoculars. And in general, 8 by 42 is an ideal size for general bird watching. They're going to give you a nice bright image that's nice and close, but be lightweight enough to carry around for hours at a time, because we know you will never want to put them down. You can get a quality new pair of binoculars for $125 and up that should last you a lifetime. But you can also look for a used pair. Teresa and I got both of our binoculars used on eBay after we researched what kind we wanted. We just kept looking for a used pair. But there is a bit of a learning curve when you're learning how to get a bird in your sights. So the best thing you can do is practice, of course. The first thing you want to do is make sure they're fitted to your face nicely, to your eyes, and play around with these eye cups and make sure they're set appropriately for whether you're wearing glasses or not. So you should see just one clear circle with black around, not like the two circles that sometimes they show on TV or in the movies. But then once you get that down, start practicing on something that's not moving. So like a signpost or a knot on a tree. And our best tip is just to stay as still as possible with your eyes and your head focused towards what you want to see. And without looking down at your binoculars first, grab your binoculars and slowly bring them up to your eyes. And that's going to give you the best chance to have what you want in focus right away. And just keep practicing that over and over. And before you know it, a bird will be flying across the sky and you'll be able to get on it, no problem.
All right, so once you do have a bird in your sights, there's a lot of stuff that you could pay attention to. And sometimes it's hard to know what is the thing that you should notice first on a bird. So a great place to start is to notice the bill. Bird species are grouped into bird families. And within a bird family, the species within it often share a number of characteristics. And bill shape and style is often one of those things that's shared. So it can be really helpful when it comes time to try to identify an unfamiliar bird. If you are able to get a glimpse of the bill and you happen to know some of the major bill shapes and types, it might help you narrow down where to start looking. You know, you're going to want to, maybe you have a field guide, or maybe you want to go online to look at the online field guide. It just might give you an idea of which bird family to start in and start eliminating birds. So let's look at a few examples. The California towhee does not have sparrow in the name, but it is one of the sparrows. And sparrows generally are hopping around on the ground looking for seeds. And so this is a very sparrow type bill, this sort of triangular kind of chunky bill that's a little wide at the base. And it is designed for eating and cracking seeds. On the other hand, warblers are fairly often found flitting around in trees or bushes, looking for really tiny bits of food, small bugs or insects or spider eggs underneath a leaf. So this cute Wilson's warbler has a very small bill, and I like to think of it as tiny tweezers to pick up tiny things. The pileated woodpecker has a very standard woodpeckery bill, and that means that it's pointy and stout and very sturdy, and it is designed for drilling holes or boring into the bark of a tree, or maybe using that stout bill to jam into the cracks of pieces of bark in order to find some bugs or beetles to eat. And then the marbled godwit is one of our shorebirds, and if you look closely, you can see sand on its bill, and that's because a lot of the shorebirds use the bill to stick directly into the sand and probe around looking for invertebrates to eat.
So another thing you want to notice is the size and shape of a bird. And so the size can be pretty intuitive when an unfamiliar bird pops up in front of you, of course, but it's really useful to kind of build a framework of benchmark family the bird belongs to. So start comparing the bird to itself. So ask yourself, how long is the tail in comparison to the body? How long is the bill in comparison to the head? And speaking of the head, does it look like it's just kind of smashed on to the bird's back and shoulders? Or does it have a bit of a neck that it kind of can crane around a little bit? And the structure, the size, and the shape can really help you narrow it down to a family, at least, before you start getting down to a species.
And field marks. So very simply, a field mark is a visible mark on a bird that can be helpful for identification. And if you start to familiarize yourself with field guides, you will see that there are a lot of common field marks that crop up across totally different species. So we're just going to introduce a handful of those common ones today. And it's really helpful to familiarize yourself with these. So first, this song sparrow has, let's see, brown and gray striping on its head, which is just head or face striping. And then on its breast and belly, it has these coarse streaks. And even on its back, you can see it's quite streaky. So that is called streaking. This Buick's wren, this white line right above the eye that's kind of horizontal, that's called an eyebrow. And then the Pacific slope flycatcher has what's called an eye ring. And that's basically a ring of feathers that are a different color from the feathers around it on its face. And occasionally an eye ring can be created by skin around the eye instead of feathers. And then these two horizontal lines across the wing are called wing bars.
It's nice when the field marks are intuitively named
Yes.
like that. So once you've gathered a lot of the clues about what the bird looks like, take a step back and notice some of the big picture of where is the bird and what is it doing. So here we have a brown creeper, and it's just attached right to the side of a trunk of a tree. And if we were watching this brown creeper, we would surely see it hitching its way up the tree, probing around with its pointy bill into the bark. And once it gets to a certain level of the tree, it'll fly back down to the base of a nearby tree or even the same tree and start all over again. And so it turns out that for the brown creeper specifically, this behavior is just as important of a field mark as what the bird looks like. And so collecting the behavioral clues is really important when you're trying to identify a bird. So some other things to ask yourself is the bird moving around, or is it just perched and sitting stock still, just kind of looking around? And if it is moving, how is it moving? Is it flitting around a tree really fast, or is it low under a bush, kind of methodically scratching away at the leaf litter? These are great clues. Ask yourself about the posture. Is it horizontal, pointed, kind of straight with the ground, or does it kind of stand up a little bit, sit up and crane its neck and look around a little bit? Another great clue is the bird alone, all by itself, or are there a lot of other birds around it as well? And if there are other birds around it, do they all look the same? Are they the same shape and size as the bird? And if so, this could be considered a same species flock, which is a great clue because some birds are never found in a same species flock, and some birds are rarely found alone. So also, if the birds are all different, that's considered a mixed species flock as well.
All right, I kind of wish we had a couple of hours left so we could tell you all kinds of more beginner's bird watching tips, but unfortunately we don't. So we'll have to share some resources instead. We've mentioned field guides, of course, and field guides are basically just books that you take out into the field that have all the different species accounts that you could see within the designated range. And there are many popular field guides out there. Our favorite just happens to be the field guides done by David Allen Sibley. So this Sibley Birds West is going to show you pretty much any bird that you could encounter within Western North America. And I'm just going to skip ahead to the library bullet point because we know for a fact that at least our library, the Sonoma County Regional Library, has tons and tons of bird-related books, including many of these popular field guides. So you can check them out and sort of test them out and see which one works for you first. And then, of course, there are tons of online resources. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology has a host of websites and apps that are extremely useful to birders of all levels. This screenshot from allaboutbirds.org. So this is essentially an online field guide. It gives, the life histories and the range maps and identification photos for all the species of birds within North America. It will show you the differences, if there are any, between males and females. And it also will allow you to compare a particular species with different species that looks very similar that you might get confused with, which is really helpful. eBird is, I think I mentioned it briefly earlier, is Cornell's massive citizen science project where you can track your bird sightings, you can share them with other birders, and you share them with Cornell so that they have this data to utilize for their research on migration or bird populations and how they're doing. It's also a really helpful tool for learning. You know, you can plug in a location, your city or your county, and look at a list of the birds that have been most recently seen. You can kind of get to know what birds are expected in a certain area at a certain time of year. And then the Macaulay Library is the digital media library associated with eBird. So every time we upload a photograph or an audio recording, it automatically goes into Macaulay. And same thing, it's a really great tool for perusing what can be expected. What does a bird look like in my area at a particular time of year? And there are some really fantastic photographer contributors to Macaulay. So you might see some incredible shots of birds, but you also might see some crummy bird shots. And we've put up plenty of crummy pictures, but we find these to be really helpful because when you're out in the field, you're not always going to get a pristine look at a bird. You're often going to get just a fleeting glimpse of something. So those less, nice pictures are actually really helpful.
Yeah, great learning tool. One of the best ways to improve your birding skills is to go out on a field trip with more experienced birders. So just be around more experienced birders. Your local Madrona or your local Audubon Society chapter, look into whatever ones they are and see if they have any bird walks that they're going on. I know Madrona Audubon Society has just started up social distance walks, so you can check that out if you're interested. The Feminist Bird Club is a nationwide organization that they have a lot of online events too that are really great. They have a San Francisco Bay Area chapter. They're focused on inclusivity and providing a safe place for underrepresented groups to connect with nature. So wherever you are, check out your local bird clubs.
All right, so this is our last segment of the presentation. Now that we have talked about the benefits of nature and how bird watching is obviously the perfect way to capture those benefits, we want to give you some suggestions on how to make bird watching a part of your routine, a part of your everyday life.
So the first exercise we present is a very simple one, but it's simply to commit to noticing and really notice a bird each day. We've talked about it a lot, about trying to make noticing birds and looking for them a habit, because that is the best way to kind of get these benefits. So if you already do this, ask yourself, how can I kind of up my commitment to bird watching a little bit more? So if you make checklists of the birds you see, can you start to string together a string of days of making a checklist, even if it's just for 2 minutes out your window, even just keep that going daily. And then once you find a bird to look at, spend some time with your new friend. Ask yourself some questions about what it's doing. Get your curiosity flowing. So this California towhee was just right out in front of our house, and he was having this weird stare down with this fly, maybe wondering what kind of odd looking seed is this? And it can just be really fun to see the same birds over and over again just around your house.
Another really easy thing you can do if you don't do this already is to start a yard list, which is essentially just a list of species you've seen from your house or your yard. When we just started getting into birds, it really was a revelation to me when I realized that some of the birds around our house that were here year round were individuals that lived here all the time. And I thought, wait a second. So that bird's address is my address? And I got so excited because it meant to me that I could watch this bird every day and maybe form a bond with it, at least in my head, probably not for the bird.
I bet the bird recognized you just as well.
Maybe so,
better.
Yeah.
Probably better.
And it also is really fun to do seasonal tracking. So for birds that don't live near your area year round, the ones that come in seasonally, keep a calendar and mark the date that, for example, this lovely Wilson's warbler, which is a bird that we love, as evidenced by the hearts we put around it, mark which day the Wilson's warbler arrives every year. Come mid-March or so, Miles and I always start to get excited and we start twiddling our thumbs going, oh, when is Willie Warbs gonna arrive again? And then inevitably one day we either see this bird or we hear it and then we high five.
Another nice exercise to do is to get yourself to notice a new thing about a common bird. So we really love this Confucius quote: "A common man marvels at uncommon things. A wise man marvels at the commonplace." And so we did tons of forensic research, and we concluded without a shadow of a doubt that Confucius was talking about bird watching here. So you heard it here first. But what this does is it kind of cultivates your attention and to detail and your curiosity. And the closer you look at a bird, the more subtle beauty is kind of revealed to you. It's also a really great way to start to understand the individual variation that one species of bird can appear as. So different individuals can look slightly different. So what differences are there? What stays the same? How does the bird change, between the end of July, when maybe its feathers are all, very worn, to later September, when it's got real crisp feathers? And why is that, you ask yourself? And there's really no better way, or it's really a great way to improve your ID skills, is to really know your common bird's cold. Once you know all the variation that a common bird can show, a different bird showing up in your area will really stick out like a sore thumb. So it's a great way to actually find uncommon birds or rare birds, is knowing your common birds.
So we were first introduced to the concept of the sit spot by this wonderful book, What the Robin Knows, by John Young. And quite simply, a sit spot is a place that you designate out in nature. It doesn't have to be a super wild area. It just has to have a little bit of nature in it, where you sit in silence and observe the natural world. So it's suggested that you pick a sit spot as close as possible to your house, or even at your house if that's possible, because the convenience of that will allow you to return to it over and over again. And then it's suggested that you sit, something like 20 minutes or so, but that's no big deal. If you don't have that kind of time to spare, even just a few minutes doing this will start to give you the benefits. And the benefits are, when you sit quietly in nature and tune in to your surroundings, that means you're going to be amping up your sensory awareness across all your senses. And that will do what we kind of talked about earlier, which is bring you back into the present moment, maybe give you just a tiny bit of relief from anxious thoughts or spiraling thoughts, and just give you a sort of sense of slowing down and relaxing. And a great perk of the sit spot is, well, let me first say that, if you walk down a park trail, the birds along that trail are going to get out of your way. They might not think that you're coming to kill them necessarily, but they're still going to give you the space to move through, and they're going to get out of your way. But if you sit quietly in nature, they will eventually, after some time, become accustomed to your presence, and then return to what's called their baseline activity, which is essentially what they would be doing if you weren't there. And who knows, you might witness some really interesting things if you allow the time and space for that to happen.
Yeah. Another activity that can go hand in hand with a sit spot is starting a nature journal. So somewhere where you record and draw your observations. 3 great prompts to kind of get you started on the page are: I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of. That can really kind of help you get past that first level and layer of observation and get a little deeper into it. It also is great for moving these observations into your long-term memory bank, especially when you're pulling associations from different aspects of your life. And nature journaling can really pull you in deeper into the natural world. So it's great for immersive nature experience. John Muir Laws is a terrific nature educator here in the Bay Area. He has a great website where he shares a lot of tips and information about nature journaling specifically. And he also has nature journaling groups that meet up both virtually and in real life. Our friend Liz Clayton Fuller also has a terrific nature journaling course for the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, if you're interested.
All right, the last exercise we're going to leave you with is simply tuning into your soundscape. It is possible to cultivate better auditory awareness, and we think that some of these exercises can be helpful for that. So wherever you are, it doesn't have to be outside, it could just be indoors as well. take the time when you think of it to close your eyes down and just try to do some of these things. You know, try to notice what is the most distant sound that you can hear at any given moment. What's the quietest sound? And then try to individually pick out each of the sounds that you can hear, and then switch gears and try to notice everything as just one big soundscape. We also, since we're speaking of soundscapes, we also just want to quickly touch on the dawn chorus, which is a bird experience that we suggest everyone try out and attend to at one time or another. The dawn chorus is simply the time of the morning, right around first light, maybe even sometimes a little bit earlier, particularly in the spring, when all of the breeding birds are waking up and starting to sing very loudly on top of each other. They're proclaiming their territories and they're, you know, looking to attract mates, but they're doing this all at the same time, and it just creates this amazing, beautiful noise. And so we have a recording of a soundscape that we recorded in Guerneville near our house.
Actually, Teresa, your sound cut out right before you finished speaking. Oh, so, okay, I can hear you now.
So the nice thing about the dawn chorus is that you don't even need to know who is singing in order to appreciate it. It's just nice to just close your eyes and listen to it. But for the people out there that are already earbirders, you might have heard a few particular birds in that dawn chorus. I think that there was a hermit thrush singing, a warbling vireo singing, a couple of Pacific slope flycatchers singing on top of each other, and then a pileated woodpecker drumming in the background.
And Teresa, would you mind playing that one more time, because we did miss the first 5 or 6 seconds of it.
Okay, here we go.
The sweet sounds of Guerneville, circa 2020 May. Okay, so this is pretty much wrapping up the presentation portion of tonight. And we just want to say, you know, when we were figuring out what to put together for this presentation, we just asked ourselves, okay, what's our intention here? And we decided our intention was just simply to communicate our enthusiasm for the joys and the benefits of bird watching and how it can impact your well-being. So we hope we successfully did that today. We do want to recognize, of course, bird watching is not going to fix all of life's problems, but if you do give it a chance, it really does have the power to change your life for the better.
It does. And before we turn it back over to Corby for Q&A, we just want to leave you with a poem that was published in 1968 that we feel is still very appropriate today. It's called The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Thank you, everybody, so much. I feel like that flew by, and thanks so much for spending your evening with us, and thank you, Sonoma Land Trust and Corby. we are going to turn it over to Corby now and do some Q&A, I believe. Give me 1 second. I'll stop sharing our screen.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Teresa and Miles, for sharing all that great information and that inspiration and all of those beneficial tools we use. I'm really looking forward to waking up tomorrow morning and seeing what the first bird is that I'll be able to see. And you're right, we are going to do our question and answer session in just a moment. But first, I'd just like to let you know that if you want to keep engaged with Sonoma Land Trust, you can do that by following our various social media accounts or visiting our website. And we're not doing hikes right now during the pandemic, but we will be resuming those as soon as we can, looking like maybe this spring would be the time we're shooting for. If you'd like to view our great collection of past presentations and download educational materials, you can do so at our Nature at Home page, which is on our website, sonomalandtrust.org/nature-at-home. And if you want to keep an eye out for future webinars, we're going to be doing one next month on October 29th, and it's going to be on monarch butterflies and their migration and the connection to Dia de los Muertos. And so if you want to sign up for that, we don't have the link up just yet, but you can check out our outings page at sonomalandtrust.org, and we'll have that registration link up there pretty soon. And keep in mind that Sonoma Land Trust, we are a nonprofit organization, which means we rely on donations from individuals, businesses, and foundations to make our work possible. So if you enjoyed tonight's presentation or you wish to see beautiful Sonoma County protected for everyone, please consider donating. Your gift really helps us do our land protection and preservation work. And to make a donation online to Sonoma Land Trust, you can visit sonomalandtrust.org and click the donate button. Thank you so much, and because in these uncertain times, we really appreciate everyone who's supporting our work. And so as promised, we are going to move on to the Q&A, and we have lots of questions. We probably won't be able to get to them all. We have so many questions because we have so many attendees. We have people from as far away as Florida viewing tonight's presentation, so that's amazing. We'll try to combine duplicate questions, and if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button at the bottom, and feel free to write them in, and we'll get to what we can. So I saw a few questions, Miles and Teresa, about the fires that are happening and what happens to the birds and where do they go. And I remember last year, I live in Occidental near you guys, and I remember when, right before we had to evacuate and the fires were going up a little bit north of us, there was a lot more birds that I was seeing. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so you know, the active fires are certainly have the potential to push birds out of their normal area into other locations as they're trying to flee the fires. And there hasn't been, I don't think, a ton of research done on how, you know, smoke is affecting birds, but we did see something recently. There was a paper that was summarizing sort of all the research on that. And the quick findings were that birds definitely can experience things like respiratory distress, smoke inhalation, and all the different items within smoke can negatively affect the reproductiveness, the reproductive ability of certain birds. If anyone is curious to read more about that, shoot us an email to imbirdingrightnow@gmail.com, and we can link you that PDF of that paper.
And, you know, it's important to note that in general, you know, birds have been dealing with wildfires, you know, the whole time for centuries. You know, these wildfires that are much more catastrophic and get into the crown of the forest can be a lot harder for the forest to recover, which then, you know, affects their habitat, of course. But luckily birds have wings and they can fly away from the fire. So I don't feel there's a lot of danger from the actual fire consuming the birds, but potentially loss of habitat will definitely have an effect, because all those birds that go elsewhere are now having to compete with those local birds for resources. So it does, you know, have that domino effect.
And there are a few particular species that actually benefit from fires ripping through forests. There are, for example, a couple species of woodpeckers that will thrive more when they return to a forest that has been burned, because they suddenly have better habitat or finding places to.
Yeah, they'll actually seek it out.
They will.
Oops, I think
Oh,
you're
I
muted.
think you're muted, Corby.
Thanks, rookie mistake. Yeah, I noticed quite a few woodpeckers out at our Glen Oaks Ranch Preserve, which is recovering from a burn back in 2017. So that's definitely true. We've got a lot of questions here about places to go birding in Sonoma County. And I loved how when you put up the pictures of birds, you said the location where they were. And I noticed one there was Willow Creek Campground, and that's a great spot that I love to go to, especially in the springtime. The river just seems to bring so many birds. But I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for our viewers here.
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, our stock answer is birds are everywhere, so you should be looking for birds all the time. You know, we've had some great birding literally in the local downtown Guerneville parking lot of Safeway. We've seen sapsuckers in the trees there. We've seen a bald eagle fly over. So when you keep your eyes peeled, you sometimes in unexpected places. That said, of course, Sonoma County is just chock full of awesome birding locations. Some of our favorite ones, the West County Regional Trail. It's a pretty long trail, and pretty much any section of it is great for bird watching. It's kind of a nice, slightly more open habitat, so the birds are visible. You know, places like Armstrong Woods, you know, hopefully that's going to recover quickly and we can all get back in there. But, you know, when there's towering redwood trees, it can be difficult to see the birds. So kind of some more open habitat can be great. Bodega Bay is a terrific spot just to, you know, we kind of do what we call Bodega Bay runarounds, where we pop into Doran Regional Park and out to the Bodega Head, and you can see a lot of different types of birds there. Anything pop into your mind?
There is a place in Petaluma called Ellis Creek Water Recycling Facility, and it hosts a lot of polishing ponds. And there are often tons of ducks there, especially in the wintertime. I think that ponds are a really great place for beginner bird watchers because birds might be just a little bit more visible. So Ellis Creek is a really wonderful place to take a walk around. It's a popular place for walkers and dog walkers. And that would probably be one of my recommendations.
All right, thanks so much.
Sorry, I did want to say that that's another great thing that eBird is a resource for. If you go to eBird and take some time to figure out how to use it, but you can go to the Explore page and explore Sonoma County, and what's called hotspots will pop up, and those are basically just really great birding locations that birders love to go. So they'll literally just be kind of a pinpoint on a map, and it will show you the actual coordinates of where to go. So that's a great resource to use.
All right, thank you. We've had several questions about the migratory bird losses in the Southwest. So perhaps you could touch on that, and a related question, if we know of any effects of climate change that are affecting birds.
Yeah, so the migratory birds that have been found in the Southwest, the most recent thing that I read was from the American Birding Association. A researcher took, I think, about 300 bird samples from one particular location, and the initial conclusion was that they were not necessarily affected by the smoke. I think that that's sort of yet to be determined, but the initial idea was that they were affected by a cold snap that had happened. There was, I think, a 50 to 60 degree difference from one day to another in that region, where it was like 90 something degrees out one day, and then the next day it dropped to 30 something or 40 something. And the speculation is that it killed off all the insects overnight, the cold snap did, and the birds that were affected were the birds that were migrating, and they were primarily insectivores. And so the idea is that they may have suddenly starve to death, unfortunately, because of the lack of insects to eat overnight. And those birds that are actively migrating, they have to constantly be eating in order to maintain their body weight. And I think that they did some weight measurements on the 300 birds. And, if one of those average birds was normally supposed to weigh between 13 or 14 grams or so, I think that they had found those birds to be weighing, 9 or 10 grams. So there was obvious weight loss on them. And so I think that right now, that at least was the latest paper I read about it. And again, we can look up that paper and send it to anyone if anyone's interested in reading that.
Yeah, and as far as climate change goes, I mean, it's certainly understood that that's
It looks like you froze there for a second, and we can't hear you right now.
Can you hear us now?
Okay, you're back.
yeah.
So we missed the last 10 seconds or so.
Okay, yeah, with climate change, bird distribution is going to change, which is difficult on the birds to find new areas in which to breed and breed successful offspring each year. Yeah, there's really not a lot to say that is positive about that. But loss of habitat is probably the #1 cause for the large decline of birds from the 70s. I think the study came out that 3 billion birds. The population has declined by 3 billion, which is just kind of mind-blowing. Hard to even wrap my head around that. But most of that is due to habitat loss, which is certainly correlated with climate change.
Yep, a lot of things changing right now. Let's see, we've got a lot of folks here who usually come on hikes with me, so it's great to see your names here. I appreciate that. And I see Orny here, one of our regular hikers. Hey, Orny. And he's got a question. He's wondering if shrikes live in Sonoma County. And that's an interesting bird. If folks don't know what a shrike is, maybe you could enlighten us a little bit, and if you know if they live here or not.
Yeah, so I think that the two species of shrikes here in North America are the northern shrike and the loggerhead shrike. And we do see the loggerhead shrike in the county. It's one of our pretty uncommon birds. Where have we seen them? We've seen them out.
Tole?
Yeah, Tole Regional Park out in Petaluma occasionally. We've seen them down in Valley Ford, kind of out near those open grassland, wetland type spots. And we're just pulling up the breeding bird atlas for Sonoma County. So they have been confirmed to breed in the county. And it looks like they're generally have been found in the sort of south and southwest portion of the county. So Valley Ford would make sense for that. Yeah, we've only just seen them a handful of times.
But yeah, they're really a pretty small bird, in comparison to a raptor, but they will hunt other birds just like a Cooper's hawk or a sharp-shinned will, and they have this behavior where once they strike a bird and kill it, they will kind of like sometimes hang it up on a little fence area to save it for later, so it can
like barbed wire.
Yeah, barbed wire, right? So it can be quite the gruesome sight. So they're a pretty tough little bird.
Yeah, very cool birds. Are bird feeders a good idea? I've got a few questions about that. Should people put bird baths and bird houses in their yard?
I say yes, for sure. They're, they're great for kind of promoting that wonder and awe that we were talking about, and seeing them up close is a really inspiring thing. I think that they've done studies on this, that birds are never going to rely solely on your bird feeder. Mm-hmm. So this is a supplemental food to them. They know how to get enough food elsewhere if that bird feeder came down. There's some, maybe hummingbirds that, really feel like they're depending on your feeder, but supposedly if that just disappeared one day, they're not going to just starve, or they're not going to fail to do their normal migration routine because of your bird feeder being up. But bird baths, on the other hand, they're always, no matter what, that's just a great idea. Birds need water, just like everyone. And so having a clean bird bath, that's important to keep up on cleaning the bird bath and your bird feeder. So kind of maybe research how best to maintain it so you don't spread any diseases between the birds. But yeah, we give thumbs up to bird feeders for sure.
All right, this question's pretty funny, and I worry about this too because I have a yurt, and this could be catastrophic. Question is, my husband insists I ask what to do about woodpeckers pecking our house.
That is a great question, and I'm just gonna speculate here that it's an acorn woodpecker. I'm not exactly sure where you are, but I've heard stories of acorn woodpeckers in particular kind of driving people insane with their incessant pecking, that they find something particularly resonant on the house. So say like a metal chimney pipe that comes up, and they find that it's going to be hard to get them to stop, especially certain times of the year when they're trying to kind of claim their territory. So that'd be my best guess, but
I don't know if we have any suggestions to specifically help with that. Maybe an internet search. Sorry, we can't be of more help.
We just have a few minutes left, so I think we'll just do one more question here to wrap it up and then say goodbye to everyone, and really appreciate everybody coming out. We've had over 350 people logged on at one point, so that's just amazing to see how inspired people are and how interested they are in getting outside and connecting with nature. So thank you so much, everyone. And last question here for you, Teresa and Miles. What's the seasonal bird that you're looking forward to seeing next?
Ooh, so winter's coming up. A few popped into my mind. One we saw today. It's the Townsend's warbler that comes and hangs out in this general area during winter, and it just arrived, I think, within the last couple weeks, and we've had a couple spent some nice time with the Townsend's warbler. But another one that popped in. Do you want?
Yeah, maybe this is the same one. The one that popped in my head was the Very thrush. It is a cousin of the American robin, so it's within the same bird family. And it is just gorgeous. It's kind of a Halloween looking bird. It's orange and black, and it can be fairly secretive, but we are lucky where we live. If we walk up one of our roads kind of a little bit into the forest, sometimes we find pretty large groups of them, and they are never really staying very long to be looked at least where we live. But we love seeing them, and they make such really cool sounds. If you've never heard a varied thrush, please go and look up their bird sounds. Their songs and their calls just have this really neat ethereal quality to them. They're so cool. So I'm so excited to see that one coming up soon.
Yeah, I know you said this is our last question, so just want to say to anybody who has more questions, feel free to email us. Our contact is on our website, imbirdingrightnow.com, and send us your bird questions. We always get a kick out of maybe needing to do a little research and getting back to you with an answer.
All right, Teresa and Miles, thank you so much. We had a lot of comments about what a wonderful program this was, and I concur. So have a wonderful evening, and all you out there, appreciate you logging on, and have a great time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Corby. Thank you, everyone that joined us.
Yeah.
See you soon on the land.